All right, so this is NextWar Taiwan. It's game number 2 in the NextWar series from GMT Games. It was published back in 2014, so a lot's happened in the last, 8 years? And so what I've decided to do, I think it was a couple years ago that the supplement number 2 came out. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, 2019 is when this came out. Supplement number 2 for the series included a whole bunch of counters for NextWar Taiwan so that you could upgrade the land order of battle. Now, I love that idea, and so I've gone ahead and implemented that into the game here. But NextWar Vietnam, which came out last year, had an updated air order of battle for the People's Republic of China as well as the United States. In fact, the whole USA order of battle has been slightly tweaked in this latest edition of the series. So what I've decided to do here is I'm using bits from 3 different components here and to try to put together a tactical surprise advanced game scenario of NextWar Taiwan. So I'm going to be doing a few unconventional things in order to make that work. I talked to the designer on Messenger, and he advised me, we were discussing how many cruise missile shots, because I'm going to go with what the game series rulebook came with here. It allocated 42 cruise missile shots, but no ballistic missiles. But NextWar Vietnam includes ballistic missile shots, and I think that should be a part of the game here. So we're going to give the PRC a 30 ballistic missile shots, which I think is what they get in NextWar Vietnam. We're also going to give the Republic of China or Taiwan, we're going to give them, and I'm using the Vietnam counter for this, but I'm going to give them 15 ballistic missile shots. These are surface-to-surface missiles, so they do have some retaliatory missile fire capability. Of course, these can be targeted by these guys too. So there is that. So that's what we're doing. The naval order battle. Naval system is fairly abstract, and yet it feels, there's a nice tight operational feel about it in the system, but that has not materially changed in the game. I am going to be using the updated order of battle from, or the setup, I should say, from NextWar Vietnam. So we're going to use the setup. Like if you're going to set this game up with a tactical surprise scenario, what U.S. units would start in Japan, that's what I'm rolling with. And so we're going to do that. I've given the U.S. Navy F-35s for their first battle group. And so they've got those on board. What else have I done? Oh, we're going to give the Chinese the J-31s, the new stealth fighter squadrons. We're going to give them a couple of those units. That does affect the victory point level. So the PRC is going to get 5 points for the F-35s I've given to the Navy, and then the Allies are going to get 10 points for the J-31 stealth. And so that's the decision we're making there. Now I'm going to do one other thing that is not entirely sanctioned by the designer, but I think it should be considered for this game when they do the reprint. And that is that in the Ryukyu Islands area here, you have the Senkaku's island group that is a point of contest in the game. The People's Republic of China can get a lot of points by seizing these island groups like the Senkakus, the Penghu, Paracels, and Spratly Island groups. And so if you go after these, you could potentially widen the conflict by bringing in the Philippines. Like they could really pose a huge threat. But they do have a few squadrons, and they do have a small surface action group. A bigger danger is bringing in Malaysia and Vietnam, because they do have an air force that could tilt the balance if things are tight. And because in order to control these things, they're going to need to maintain control over the sea zones, and they're going to need to control the air over these areas if they want to be able to supply and hold on to these island groups. So these little countries, they do end up mattering in the end. But back to the Ryukyu Islands, Okinawa is in this island group, and I believe there should be a major U.S. basing presence here, because we do have a very large military presence in Okinawa. There's a Marine Corps base there that I'm aware of. There is, I think, the 18th Air Force Wing is located there. And so I feel like the squadrons that the scenario has setting up in Japan should be able to rebase to abstracted bases in the Ryukyus, and from there fly support missions in the defense of the Republic of China. So I'm going to make a notional base for them, okay? I'm just going to assume, let's just assume for the moment that Vietnam, or let's say the Philippines, we're going to use the Philippine bases for Okinawa until and unless Philippines enter the game. It's unlikely that everybody's going to enter the game, so I'm going to use that as a notional base in the Ryukyu Islands group. So that'll allow the A-10s and F-16s to be able to fly support missions, and that should be, I think, a more realistic portrayal of U.S. air presence in the theater. So that's something I'm doing differently. I am using some other pieces from the supplement too, giving the Republic of China 2 Patriot batteries per the rules from series supplement number 2. And these can defend against ballistic missile shots. They do have a range of 5 hexes. So they don't cover the whole island, but we can cover some of the major invasion sites with those batteries. So I positioned 1 battery there, 1 battery there. And you can already see I put down some missile markers, just kind of fiddling around with where do I think I want to do the initial shots with the Chinese opening barrage. The Chinese are going to get some batteries as well, some surface-to-air missile batteries. They're going to get S-300s. They're going to get 2 of them to start, and they'll get more as more HQs come online. These are basically either attached to air bases or they get attached to the to an HQ, and then they can move with that HQ. So those are the special rules that I'm using. So where it's going to get a little tricky and could be confusing is I'm using, for all of the ground units for Taiwan, let's call them that, I'm going to use this rulebook to give them their reinforcements, and that's pretty much all I'm going to use this one for. I'm going to use this to give the Chinese their ground reinforcements and whatever reinforcements it says they should get pertaining to their ground troops. I'm going to use this document here to govern the reinforcement of United States Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, and the People's Republic of China Air Force. I'm going to use this to govern how they enter play and try to keep all this straight. So this will govern also how many, cruise missile shots that they get reinforced with and all of that. So kind of mashing it all together to get the most up-to-date, I feel like, version of this scenario. So we'll do some videos on it and see how it goes. I'm probably going, this is the setup, by the way, for the Republic of China. I'm defending light on the bottom of the island because, I shouldn't say the bottom, east of the island. The island's tilted sideways. But I'm going to go ahead and do this because I have invaded successfully the east of the island, but the problem with that is you've got to control, the rules for controlling the straits and the air is much more stringent in order to funnel supply through the ports on the east side of the island. It's much easier to support your invading on the west side of the island, so I'm defending more heavily over there. The other problem with defending here is you can get bottled in to this narrow land strip by the rugged terrain and end up having to re-invade on the other side anyways. I mean, the invasion could be contained down here. So I really am not a big fan of invading on the south. I mean, you could try to make a desperate end run on Taipei down here, but the terrain is not, and the road network is not nearly as sophisticated on the east of the island as on the west. So I'm probably going to, I'm really attracted to this area here for a couple of reasons. There is a very good port at Kaohsiung, and we have a port facility here that can offload 4 steps of ground units every movement phase. This one can do 2. I think this one here can do 2 near Tainan. So you have very good ports here in addition to your beachhead. So I'm kind of leaning toward here and just going all in and then using airborne troops to perhaps seize some other facilities and contain the battle until we can get a good enough buildup to get a breakthrough. But there'll probably be some more island hopping. Depends on how long the battle goes and how long the war lasts. If there's time to do some other invasions and come in on other beaches and try to seize the entire island is usually not something that happens in the scope of the game. Usually the UN will shut the game down before they get the whole island. But once they're on the island, it's going to be very challenging to eject them. So the name of the game is basically make it as expensive as possible and win by victory points. I also intend with the Chinese to go after these island groups because the United States, according to the International Posture Matrix, China's aggressive, Russia's aggressive, but Russia's really not in this one. I don't even know why we roll for that. There's no counters for them in this game, but it's there just in case you're doing a much bigger scenario combined with Korea. The United States is moderate. The administration's a dove, the military's a dove, that sounds about right, and the popular is a hawkish, and that's going to make them come into the game at level 2, which means no ground troops, but they will have Navy and they will have air power. Japan comes in with a moderate administration, dovish military, and dovish popular, so they're going to be passive, they're going to be level 1, special forces only, electronic support in terms of detection, but they provide nice leverage in the UN. So the final UN die roll is +2. So there's a 20% chance of getting a ceasefire, I think. I'd have to double check the chart, but I think that gives them a 20% chance of a ceasefire every turn. And sooner or later, that's going to happen, and then it gets very expensive for the Chinese to continue the war, because if they choose to break the ceasefire, the U.S. will ratchet things up, and there's a victory cost as well, so it usually doesn't work out well to defy the UN for long. You might be able to get away with it once for a little while, but you can't repeatedly do that and still win the game. You're going to get clobbered on VPs. So that's the scenario setup, and we'll do some other videos and show you how this thing turns out.